Mary Favre and Jason Stockton are suing Mary's brother, Michael Manry, for medical bills and personal belongings.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2117, Favre Stockton versus Manry.
Thank you, Kevin. Mr. Manry, this is your sister.
Correct.
And that is her.
Fiance.
And you have a son who is 19.
Yes, Your Honor.
How many other children do you have?
I have 3 altogether.
How old?
One is almost 30, the other one is 18, and then I got the 19-year-old, which one here.
Okay. And your son, who is now 19, is the subject of this case. Who had custody of the children?
I got custody of Dakota now.
When did you get custody of the children?
Only when he was 18 years old.
Do you have those papers, sir?
Yes, I do.
May I see them, please? Okay, so this grants you, sir, legal and physical custody of Dakota Manry until further order of the court. So what this case is about now, and I assume from what I've read, that Dakota has certain special needs.
Yes, ma'am.
And because of his special needs, he is unemployed. Did he finish any sort of a high school?
He graduated.
He graduated from
Yes.
high school?
Yes.
Did he go to a special school?
He went to a regular school, but he was in special education.
And when he graduated, did he graduate when he was living with you?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what your case is about. At some point, according to you, you have a niece. And your niece wanted to have Dakota come and stay with her for a couple of days. You were at the time, according to your answer, sort of in between residences. You were evicted from one place and going someplace else?
I was in the process of moving. I got my niece to go with me to, ask her if she'll bring me to go get Dakota by my cousin's house. And she said, sure.
Okay. Dakota went to live for a few days, at least, at your niece's house.
No, not live there. No, not live there. No, ma'am.
Well, he was there overnight.
He was over there overnight.
How many nights was he there overnight?
I think about maybe a week. I was supposed to be
Okay.
3 days.
So he was there.
Yeah.
During that time, you, who are his aunt,
Yes, ma'am.
went to your niece's house and you saw Dakota there.
Yes, ma'am.
And according to you, became concerned because, according to you, it looked like he hadn't showered in a week.
He was in dirty clothes. He just looked awful.
So you decided to take him to live with you.
I asked him, I said, do you want him to the house to stay, a little while, where he can eat and all that, because he looked like he hadn't ate either.
Okay. Well, this is what your case is about. You decided to take him, didn't discuss it with his father. During the time he was with you, he had some expenses. You want his father to be responsible for those expenses, and you want his father to return certain of his personal property. That's what the case is about.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First, let me deal with all things legal. I have an order here dated January 21st, 2021, which grants physical and legal custody of Dakota to his father. Do you have any subsequent order granting you custody or guardianship, is my question.
I have power of attorney.
That is not the same thing. Can I see what they have?
Power of attorney when I didn't give her permission. I got custody. Okay.
Okay, this was signed by Dakota, so he's giving you legal power to act on his behalf.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Dakota, by signing this power of attorney, he's saying that I am a whole person, and I give you the right to make medical decisions for me if he can't do them. It's a general power of attorney in case he becomes unable to make decisions on his own. This is an order of custody. You have power of attorney. Power of attorney suggests to me that Dakota wants to emancipate himself from his father, wants someone else to act on his behalf. It becomes a complex question because if Dakota has special needs and if he can't act on his own, and a court has already ruled that his father should have custody of him, either you have a power of attorney and he's emancipated, in which case his father's not responsible for any of his medical bills, or this is invalid because he can't sign a power of attorney because he doesn't have the mental capacity to understand all of the implications of this power of attorney. Now, your nephew was in special classes.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know what the nature of his disabilities are?
Fetal alcohol syndrome.
Is that his diagnosis, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
He had, according to you, after you took him from your niece's house, and you do acknowledge you took him without his father's permission.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
We was not talking, me and him.
It doesn't make any sense if you were
And so
talking or not.
I didn't have his number, and I asked Dakota, I said, text your daddy to let him know you're coming with me. Dakota said, and he showed me where he texted Michael. Now, I don't know if it was on a different Facebook page.
No, it's your responsibility to notify his guardian, who has custody, that you have taken physical custody of him.
Right.
And when did you take physical custody of him? Give me the month, day, and year.
May 20th of this year, 2022.
Now, while you had physical custody of Dakota, you indicate that he had surgery.
Yes, ma'am.
And part of what you want Mr. Manry to pay for is the ambulance bill. What kind of surgery did he have?
Brain surgery, and he had a feeding tube put in him.
Just a second. What caused you to take him to a hospital or to a doctor?
Your Honor, when he arrived at the house on the 20th, he had very bad slurred speech, and his balance was completely off. He was falling over. Your Honor, it was like he was a drunken man.
Let me go back to you for a second, sir. While Dakota was with you in the months just prior to May, did you notice Dakota having difficulty in his gait?
Not like he was explaining to me, I was going overboard.
No, did you?
But his balance was off, okay.
Did you inquire? Did you take him to the
Yes,
doctor?
I did. I took him, actually, right after I got him.
So you saw that balance was off a while ago.
When I noticed that he had headaches, all right, because his dream, that, thanks to me, was wrestling. He loves wrestling. I put him in wrestling. I talked to the promoters, and I did that for him. But when I seen every time he got body slammed, you know, and this and that, I had to take him out of it. I got concerned because he was complaining of headaches. So I made him an appointment, and I waited for a referral. Well, when the referral came in, my kid was kidnapped.
So he never actually saw the second doctor?
No.
Okay. Do you have any records?
Well, I couldn't get the records. I tried to get them.
Once something went wrong, my kid died doing surgery. I couldn't even be there for him and all that. Anything could have happened.
Just a second. I'm following you, sir. Now, when did you take him for this brain surgery?
I took him the first week of June. I took him to do a CAT scan, and as soon as she did that, we went to the hospital. We didn't leave the hospital. They put him in the ER, and from the ER, we went to Florence, Alabama, and then the surgeons there couldn't do it because it was so big.
What was so big?
Your Honor,
brain.
they found a mass the size of a grapefruit. The first week, Dakota came to stay with us after we noticed the balance issues and the slurred speech. She took him to doctor who diagnosed him with being severely malnutritioned. Your Honor, when he came to my house, his
Liar.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Your Honor, sorry. My apologies.
his leg was no bigger round than my wrist.
I got it. Mr. Manry, everything has to be put in perspective. You had a lot of things going on. And if Mr. Stockton's reporting to me is accurate, even though there might be some bad feeling of the way your sister and her fiancé took physical custody of Dakota, you really have to be in a position to say thank you to them, because you, for whatever reason, not for lack of trying, nobody is suggesting for lack of trying, you did try to take him to a doctor, you did see that there were things wrong with him. I understand that it's not always that easy to get the right specialist to get involved in this kind of surgery, but you really have to take a breath. Yeah. And I assume it's accurate, because I cannot assume that anybody would perform brain surgery on a child that was not necessary. That
okay, why she couldn't call me?
She should. Just a second. Just a second. Your sister should have called you and told you that Dakota was going into the hospital to have surgery. That would have been the nice thing to do. Did you do that?
She did.
No, she did not.
She called
I called
their
my mama.
mother.
Well, calling your mother.
His phone was disconnected. I did not have the new number until he called me or texted me with a bunch of Drama. That's when I got his
You took
number.
my kid from me. You kidnapped my son no matter what.
Mr. Manry, what I want you to do is just take a breath for a moment.
Yes, ma'am. Dakota kept texting me, you know, he kept on like video chatting me and everything. And then all of a sudden, like a light switch, he changed and everything. The boy's mind's been poisoned by Mary and
No,
Daisy.
so far, Mr. Manry, you're not losing this case, so I don't know what you're agitated about.
Mary Favre and Jason Stockton claim Mary's brother, Michael Manry, owes for medical bills and personal belongings. Michael is countersuing, saying they illegally took his son from his custody.
Mr. Manry, Dakota was only at your niece's house for a short while. You already told me that when he came to you, his gate was off. So right before he went to stay for a couple of days at your niece's house, was his speech slurring?
No, he always had a speech impairment because of the disability, but his speech was not slurred at all. That is a lie. Him having the skinny arms and all, that's all
Okay,
a lie.
I'm not talking about skinny arms. I'm talking about this his slurred speech. What I was saying to you, Mr. Manry, is that I don't think there are any bad guys here. I don't think that you're a bad guy. And I don't think that your sister and her fiancé meant any harm when they saw a situation that they thought was dangerous. And as it turned out, they were able to get him seriously needed medical care. That doesn't mean it was all done right. But what you're asking for is to be compensated by the defendant for the cost of the ambulance bill that you incurred. Now, this power of attorney was signed by Dakota, if in fact he had capacity to sign this power of attorney. It was done 2 weeks after his first surgery. So up until that time, even if I could construe this as a valid document, his father had legal and physical custody of Dakota. And I assume that's because he had special needs and is unable to live on his own. Is your son able to live on his own?
No, he never will.
Okay, so that's what I assume as a result of this order. If you want this order changed, you have to go back to the court in Mississippi. You have to be declared his guardian.
Your Honor, we did not want to be declared his guardian. The reason the POA came about to start with, during the entire surgical,
Your Honor, can I say something?
the father was aware of it. So was the mother. The mother was actually present at most all of the appointments.
It doesn't matter. The mother doesn't have
And-
custody, legal or
But
physical.
we were under the impression, and were told she did, that he only had a temporary custody. So she showed up to say she had to sign all the documents. She was going to do this. She was going to do this. She was going to do this.
Did she sign the documents?
She signed some. Then under social services directions, Mary was informed she should go after a power of attorney. It was discussed with both Dakota and her.
It
She
may
could
be.
make the...
It may be. That's not a lawyer. That's bad advice. Now, just before I get to the issue of clothing, property, whatever he has that's at your house, and where it should go from here, your first stop is to go back to the court in Mississippi that issued this order.
Yes, ma'am.
And say to them, I need Dakota's law guardian. He'll be appointed a guardian for himself, independent of you, and they will interview him and they will do certain evaluations of him and determine where it is that he wants to live. But you have to do that in court. You can't do that ad hoc because you relied on his mother's statements that she had the authority to sign off on these things. She did not until this is changed. And if you want to change it, you are free to go in and try, and then Dakota will be interviewed and seen by a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and he'll have a medical evaluation and determine whether or not he is a person who actually requires guardianship. And if he requires guardianship, you can petition for that, and you'll have a trial. This is not that trial.
Yes, ma'am.
Did Dakota have Medicare?
Medicaid.
He had Medicaid.
That would pay for the ambulance ride.
Yeah, I just want to know if he had Medicaid. He did.
I did give them the Medicaid number, and they keep sending me a bill, and I called them, and they said because it's a different state, it's not covered.
It doesn't matter. Tell them to send their bills to his father. Tell them that you do not have custody or guardianship of this child. His father has custody, guardianship, and this bill is not yours.
The bill is going to Dakota. They're going after Dakota for it. His Medicaid didn't pay for it.
They may be going after Dakota for it. They will be very smart seeking payment from people who can pay them, which is his parents. Right now, you're not legally responsible to pay for his ambulance bill. The only person who might be legally responsible for it is his father, and that will be up to the ambulance company to do. This is not your responsibility at all. So discount the ambulance bill. Next to Dakota's things, you want property that he has in his father's house. So let me go back to you with regard to my statement to you 4 minutes ago. You have to have this custody order modified. You have to go back to the same court that issued a legal and physical custody order of Dakota to his father and say, we would like guardianship of him. He wants to stay with us. He's 19 years old. He will be interviewed. He'll be analyzed. And if at the end of the day you get guardianship of Dakota, then his father may or may not turn over whatever property he has. Dakota's never worked. So whatever property he has was either purchased or given to him by either his mother or his father or other relatives.
A lot of it was his mom that paid for the stuff.
I don't know that.
No, the bottom line is why all this balls down through yonder.
So far, Mr. Manry, you're not losing this case, so I don't know what you're agitated about. You're not losing. You're not losing. What I'm telling the plaintiffs is that if they think that they can provide a more pleasant, stable environment for Dakota, they have the right to petition for guardianship of him. Now, it would be in Dakota's best interest long-term if he were to have contact with both his mother and his father. Contact. I'm not saying live with. Mother, father, and his aunt, and his soon-to-be uncle, as soon as you make up your mind and give her a ring. It's in his best interest. He needs the largest community that he can.
I agree.
Okay? We're going to stop throwing barbs because that only serves to inflame already raw emotions. I want you to say, I am angry that I wasn't consulted in this massive surgery that your son had, but I'm grateful that it was done, because if it wasn't done, in all probability, he wouldn't be here. You just have to think about that.
Mary Favre and Jason Stockton have accused Mary's brother, Michael Manry, of owing for an ambulance bill. Michael claims Mary and Jason took his son without his permission.
What I'm telling you is a very simple procedural thing where you have to go. You can't sue him for the return of Dakota's things unless you have guardianship of Dakota.
Understood.
Because he already is the subject of a recent order of custody from a court. That's what you have to have. You can take that bill from the ambulance service, put it in an envelope, we'll get you the address, and that's where that goes. That's his father, who is his legal parent under this order. So send that bill to them so you don't have to worry about that bill. As far as his property is concerned, that has to go along with an order of custody or guardianship, and that's something that you should do. But, Mr. Manry, I am not making a decision with regard to his custody or not. What I'm asking you is, until a court reviews whatever orders they're going to make with regard to custody and guardianship, first, I know you may be angry, but they probably saved his life by getting him to the doctor that they did. And if they removed a massive tumor from his brain, you should say, thank you for doing that, because it was a month after he was living with you. Someone else took your son and saved his life. And for that, at least, you have to be grateful. You can be angry. You can be angry that you didn't get it done before. You can be angry that somebody else did it without consulting you. You can be angry at all of those things. But at the same time, you have to feel grateful that it was done.
There wasn't no reason they kidnapped my son.
Okay. Mr. Manry, you keep going back to the same song.
I was worried about
You keep going back to the same song. And what I'm saying to you is, their next stop, if Dakota wants to live with them, and he's right now over 19 years old, is to the court who issued the order to modify that order. All I'm saying to you is, I want you to say, I am angry that I wasn't consulted or didn't participate in this massive surgery that your son had. But I'm grateful that it was done, because if it wasn't done, in all probability, he wouldn't be here. You just have to think about that. What I'm telling you is you have to love your child more than you, at this moment, dislike your sister and her fiance, because they were able to take control of a situation and get your child fixed. So is Dakota, just for my own, is Dakota angry with his father?
He's angry that his father won't return any of his wrestling. He is correct. He is a huge wrestling fanatic.
Okay. What particularly does he want? He wants his wrestling?
He wants his wrestling belts. They have replica belts that were made. He wanted his PlayStation 4 and the wrestling game.
PlayStation 4, I'm not interested in that. He wants his wrestling belts.
Yes, ma'am.
Yana, can I show you something right quick on my phone? Dakota kept texting me, you know, he kept on like video chatting me and everything. And then all of a sudden, like a light switch, he changed and everything. The boy's mind's being poisoned by Mary and Jason.
What I'm telling you, Mr. Manry, that's for another court and another day. When Dakota has a lawyer, you may have a lawyer to modify this custody order. Right now, he would like his wrestling belts.
Oh, I want my son to come home.
Okay, then I strongly urge you to go to the court, file a petition against them for custodial interference, or you go to court and file an application for guardianship of Dakota, which is a much more positive thing to do, and let a court that has the social work services, the psychiatric services, evaluate Dakota and figure out in whose best interests are we supposed to place faith. And I think if he is a thinking young man, and you told me that he is because he wants these things that are important to him, he should be able to have a say with whom he lives. Now, you have my ruling. Your next stop, folks, is to modify the order of the court in Mississippi that gave his father custody, physical and legal custody of him. You have to petition for guardianship. That's your next step. So, in that regard, your case is dismissed. Send the ambulance bill to his father.
I got a counter-suit,
We're done.
Your Honor.
Yeah,
Court is adjourned.
I'm not hearing it, sir.
Okay. I did everything I can for my kids, and
My brother, he said nothing but lies.
when somebody takes your kid without your permission,
But, you know, that's him. I mean, that's what he does.
you don't know where they're at, and you're going crazy because you don't know where your kid's at, that's kidnapping.
I should get a thank you out of it, but he's not going to do that.
I want my son to come home to his daddy because I love him very much. That's my son.
It's about him. It's not about her. It's not about her and her brother. It's not about me and her brother.
My son, I love him. I'll do anything in the world for him.
It's about Dakota.
So you didn't listen to the defendant's counterclaim back there for emotional distress for, I believe it was $3,500. I would have given that to him. I don't think anyone was acting maliciously in this case. Like you said to the father, he should be grateful that his son is alive and his sister took action when he might have been stumbling a little bit. But that's what that cause of action is for, when someone takes an action that was legally incorrect. And here, the plaintiffs had no legal right to take him to get that surgery. I agree that he should have had it and it all came from a good place. However, when you take an action that causes somebody else such severe emotional distress, and I would consider taking someone else's child in for the riskiest surgery that probably exists, qualifies as causing some severe emotional distress. So I probably would have awarded him that if I was ruling.
Well, so let me give you the reason that I didn't bother to hear it. I think the aunt and her fiance had nothing but pure motives in taking this 19-year-old who they say appeared to be malnourished, and they say was diagnosed as being malnourished, which is possible, and it's possible that it was all related to this brain tumor that he clearly had that was impairing his stability, and he was with his father for a year while this tumor was growing. I don't think that they had malicious intent.
Neither do I.
And I think that but for their actions, this 19-year-old boy probably would be dead. If they took out the tumor that was the size of a grapefruit, I would say 6 months later or 8 months later, there's a strong probability that would affect the optic nerve, affect the carotid artery, and gone. So although I could understand his annoyance, from the time they went to live with him until his surgery was a month. And I actually don't believe that this father didn't know where he was for a month, because they evidently have a living mother who they're both in touch with. He was moving around, phone disconnected. At the hospital, the mother showed up. She said, I can sign the documents. Well, you know, you're involved in major surgery for a child. Your focus is not on your brother, who did not take care of business for a year. So I'm going to leave that up to a family court judge to determine who should have custody, and I probably guarantee you that custody will remain with his aunt, because that's what Dakota wants. Father may be angry, but that's what's going to happen. I have no doubt that the father loves him. He did not take good care of him for the year.
Sure.
And so I wasn't going to reward that by giving him any money against these people who had nothing but the child's best interests, when for a year he really didn't take care of business with his son. And that's